Judges grinning, deals in shadows locked. Caseworkers speaking truth they've mocked. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, laws collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. CPS stealing kids, no trace. Lies build walls, the truth they erase. Gunners howl, cuts through the air. He won't stop midnight, he'll get there. Dark hallways where the guilty play. Secrets hiding, hope fades away. A man with fire, voice like a storm. Breaking chains, reform, transform. Gunning on for justice, rage intense. Bringing kids home from this broken fence. Corruption weighs heavy, laws collapse. Kids go missing behind their maps. Family shattered, cries dulled by fights. CPS takes them in the dead of night. But Gunner speaks of brighter days, cut through the lies, light ablaze. Family shattered, cries dulled by fights. CPS takes them in the dead of night. But Gunner speaks of brighter days, cut through the lies, light ablaze.
Hey look, this for every mama got her baby snatched on some bogus shit. For every pops they locked out the crib like he ain't blood. CPS, y'all been eating off pain for too long. We know what you on, but now it's war, this gunning foe, CPS. Kick doors, no warrants, they taking our seeds. Say it's neglect, but they planting they greed. Feds in they pocket, judge got a fee. Run it like a business, adoption spree. Contracts overseas, got partners in France. But shorty from Shy, he ain't get a chance. Mama work 2 jobs, daddy do right, but they still snatch his baby in the middle of the night. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunner got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They labeled us monsters, called us unfit, but it's they paperwork dirty, all of it forced to flip. How the fuck they selling babies to a bidder overseas? And tell the fam you unworthy. Man, please, we got mamas in pain, daddies in tears. They breaking our hearts, been doing it for years. Now we riding with Gunner, and we got the proof, sworn under oath. Now it's time for truth. Trump got the team and the pen in his hand. He said bring them home. Now that's the plan. You feds been hiding, but it's over now. We moving like an army, and we ain't bowing down. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's off of Davis popping, and we loaded the clip. Gonna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They ain't gods, they ain't law, they just people, corrupt people. And when the people rise, ain't no system safe. The Chi-Town, it's the movement. We gunning for CPS, and we coming heavy. Yeah, yeah, wait.
Good Sunday evening. It is a little bit past 9:30. We had some issues in the back room with the particulars that are going on here. We couldn't go live for some reason. We went to hit the tab and it said no. But we fixed that stuff there. It was something internal. So we're back here live. Welcome again to another show, another episode of Gunning for CPS. I'm your host, Gunner. And hope you guys have had a good weekend and everything's going well. And hopefully you guys, as I know, a lot of us have had a lot of things going lately, working on your cases, so on and so forth. We're going to give you a little update. Those of you that have filed your federal case and you have in a lot of jurisdictions, in certain areas, different districts, if you will, because each state fits within a U.S. federal district. Districts such as District 6, which is Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Michigan. So anything that happens in those states are relevant in federal court. But yeah, that looks, like I said, it's amazing. And let me see what we got here. But we're going to go over a few things tonight. One, we're going to pick up on our series once again, where we left off on the Declaration of Independence. And we had a lot that we covered that a lot of people didn't realize. But tonight, I want to show you a couple things. Let's start off with a couple things. One, that's that update. If you've had that issue, going back to the federal court thing, that the judge gives you permission in those certain districts to do digital uploads or electronic uploads. You have to go through the, let me see if I get this right, ECF system / whatever it is. I think it's MC or something like that. But if you have to do that system, there's a lot of things they're not used to, especially with pro se. This has happened not only to myself recently, but to a couple other people that have filed in other districts. They're not used to a lot of people filing pro se. So what you have to do is you have to set up a account with Pacer, PACER. It's a independent company, does all the records for the federal court, so on and so forth. You can look at those. Those are free to people. You can pay for them as well too. Usually lawyers have a lifetime sign into those if they have a federal license. So they have 100% access to the system. Once they get their licensing, they're then put in the system, and then as the cases come down, they have ways of doing things, but you still have to get the court in the back to connect a lot of stuff. Okay. Okay. Like I said, some technical stuff here. So if you need some problems connecting these things, you're going to get permission from the judge. You then have to sign up for a Pacer account, and sometimes that's a pain in the butt, believe it or not. And it's a huge thing. So then you have to call the court clerk, which we did because we got approved way earlier in the month. Judge give the order, Colin Pacer working things out for a week and a half, about 2 weeks, getting all the bugs worked out of their system. And, once again, I'm not I'm very versed on some of these systems, but this is a very, very early, like DOS, MOS DOS system. It's like that old. The way some of this works, it does not function very, very easily. But you have to have the court go in and give you permission. You get permission from the judge, then they'll give you permission to sign up. In other words, you do an application for the ECFF system. You then get it approved by the court clerk, which you have to call the court clerk, and okay, well, now you're connected. And then you connect it with your case through the Pacer system. Well, we've done all that, couldn't figure out why none of this stuff was uploading. Nothing was going on. What the hell? This system is crap. Nothing but issues with this thing. And it's another hoop to go through. So we come to find out from another person that has a federal case too, went through the very same thing. And this took them several weeks to resolve, but it jacked up their case. And once again, that's not your fault. So once you take and you get everything done, you have to then, I guess, because they didn't do it the first time, you have to call back to the court clerk's office and say, hey, connect my case with my ECFM thing on your side, and it's not a Pacer thing. Okay, because that's the hoops we all had to go through, was figuring out whether or not Pacer was involved in this, and it's not. This is something the court clerk's office have to do. So then it runs into the fact that eventually some of you guys, just giving you a heads up with some of this, you may have to file a Rule 60B because you're running out of time, because there are time limits within things in federal cases, but they're not your fault when it comes to this Pacer ECFF system. They're just not used to signing people up for this stuff, and they don't know to turn it on. So they've got a person, from what I'm understanding, in each office, depending on the district and everything else you're in. And they don't know this because these attorneys come in and they just sign up and boom, they're in, and they know how to work the system because they've got somebody usually there mentoring them or something. And you do all the uploads, and you have to digitally you have, when you do it that way, you have to categorize it, what kind of upload it is. Is it is it an exhibit? Is this a motion? Is it this? Is that? And you have to categorize it in this new system that's supposed to make it easier. But when it's not connected to your case, you can't do anything. So then you come out, because you're on time constraints. Then you have to file something. It's like a motion 60B of saying, listen, judge, you gave the order, but the follow through, and it's not their fault. It's just improper training of the court clerk's office of not having a very, very well-versed person to get that order from the judge, then make contact with you, because the burden is technically on both of you in a way. But they tell you, hey, sign up for Pacer. This says you go there, but they don't do it a step at a time and everything else, and get you to the point. Okay, now this is how you file, and do a tutorial, which should actually be mandatory even for new attorneys to go through. They should have a training seminar or something on there on how to do this stuff, because they don't. And we looked everywhere, and they wonder why the courts are so complicated. But as we told you, as we go through this, we're going to educate you. So if you get that, make sure you sign up for Pacer, let them know you have a Pacer account, get permission from your judge if that's required in your district, and file the proper motion to file electronically. And when you get that, then call back to the court clerk, and then you connect the two, and you stay on the phone with them if you can. And then let them know, hey, I can see it now. Yes, I'm turned on this and this and that. And then you assume that you're done. You're not. They have to connect. They're just telling you there's a two-part thing to this, is why we're saying that. One is to authorize you to get into the system, which is part one. Part two is to actually connect your case, and they don't think to do that. But we're not the only district that's going through this. And I'm even hearing other people say, listen, I was kicked away by a court clerk or this or that. No, they can't. If you've got the proper format, and then I've looked at other people that have had their filings and stuff like that, and some of the things that I've turned around and noticed. And I've always told everybody, if you're going to do a 1983 on constitutional rights issues, any and every point you make in that filing has to revert back to a constitutional rights violation. Otherwise, you leave it out. That's for a different court. And I think we need to understand that. But we got a couple of things here for you. We're going to start off with that. I wanted to share that information for you guys out there that are doing your case and running into some issues. That is what you need to do, to go through that. Let anybody else know, educate them. Hey, we heard about this problem. Make sure you're connected to the ECF system, as well as your case is connected to that ECF account that you just got authorized to open. That they don't tell you to call back once it's done or anything else. But this has come out in a court case here, and I think you guys may have seen some of this. And this is on, let's see here what we got here. This here, well, balls. Here we go. This is on, it's labeled Title 4E funding, but this is a caseworker on the stand, just laying it out there, actually telling the truth. I know that a lot of us don't hear.
You train your workers about how to be funding. First, the child must be removed from the home. And then second, the court must make that order that continuation in the home is contrary to the child's best interest. That's correct so far, correct?
Yes.
And if those two factors are not satisfied, that is, they're not met, the child's not removed from the home, or the court does not make those specific findings, then the state could lose hundreds or millions of dollars.
Correct.
So it is very important, number one, that the child be removed, and number two, that the court make specific findings that continuation in the home would be detrimental to the child. Otherwise, the state loses millions of dollars.
To receive that funding, yes.
Yeah, and it could be millions of dollars.
It could be.
Yeah. And the state would lose it if those two specific criteria are not met.
Well, not that we would lose it, but we wouldn't then be reimbursed or get that money.
What's the difference? If you don't get the money, you lost the money.
Well, if the kid's never out of care, then we wouldn't need the money to spend on them anyway to sustain them out of care.
Right. We're talking about just the situation under which your state would get money, right?
Right.
If you don't seize a child from the home, you don't get money, right?
Right.
Because the child's not in care, we don't have to provide services, we don't have anything to pay for, right?
Right.
So the only way that the state, your agency, gets money from the federal government is if it removes that child from the home, correct?
I don't know if that's the only way, but I know that's one way.
Under Title 4E, what do you train your workers about how the state gets its money in relation to the work they do for your agency? What do you teach them?
For the Title 4E funding, that's
Yes.
correct, but I don't know about the other grants and all of that stuff.
Okay, the
which is
only thing we're
possible.
talking about right now
Okay.
is the exhibit that's in front of you, Title
Right.
4E funding. In order to qualify for Title 4E funding, you train your workers that they must remove that child from the home. That's the first step, right?
Yes.
Then the second step you train your workers is that they must obtain from the court an order that says continuation in the home is contrary to the best interest of the child, correct?
Correct.
And you teach them this. If they don't follow those two steps, your agency does not get the money under Title 4E, correct?
Correct.
And that the failure to follow those two steps could cost the state millions of dollars, correct?
Yes.
So you guys heard it right there. Wow. Money scam. That's cash for kids, is what that is. You guys have got to look at this and say, right there it is. And right there, every bit of that training or that policy or procedure that she's quoting from of that this is how we train is unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. Now you're going to ask why? Because it doesn't focus on the constitutional rights of the family. It's whether or not they can get funding and whether or not, this false things of child safety of this and that. There are times your family and everything else, just because of life in general, is going to be in unsafe circumstances, whether you know it, you don't know it or not. I'll give you an example. You could have a pipe broken behind the wall and sewer gas coming through your house that you have no idea it's been going on. Once again, you don't know those other things, but once again, they don't look at it like that. They look at that you're being negligent. Why didn't you open your walls? Why did you do that? How are we supposed to know? Those are things that should have been covered under building codes, or when that wall was closed up. This is why inspections are so prevalent and need to be done by properly licensed and trained personnel. That a lot of people cut corners. Well, I know Bob did that. Take that chance if you want. But once again, there's a big difference between people that do it for a profession and people that don't. Myself, I can look into a commercial residential building, this and that, and tell you what's code and what's not, because I've been in that. I've been in the trades for over 30 years. Well, over 30 years, but we'll just go there. But once you get used to it, you learn some of the trades if you pay attention, such as plumbing, and all these other things. But what they're talking about is, I know that from experience. I'm trying to connect the dots. Let's walk the dog a little bit, as they say. Somebody with experience being around those circumstances is more apt to know how they function and work, versus a CPS worker that is blindly getting instructions and not even thinking about constitutional rights violations by what they're doing. Am I doing something within my job that is going to violate the constitutional rights of somebody else? Now, regardless of, well, I work for the state or it doesn't matter. You still have to be constitutionally sound, 100%. I believe Darren spun up something in the back room here for us. Let's check this out. He put together a video, and then I believe he's going to join us here real soon. So let's check this one out.
In the spirit of investigative journalism, this newsletter uncovers the ongoing controversies surrounding Child Protective Services, CPS, across the United States. From wrongful child removals to systemic failures in foster care, we bring you the latest developments, substantiated by recent reports and lawsuits. For more resources, visit cpsbreakingnews.com and subscribe to www.youtube.com/@abolishcps for in-depth discussions and advocacy. In New York, a class action lawsuit accuses the Administration for Children's Services, ACS, of violating parents' Fourth Amendment rights during home investigations. Parents report being coerced into allowing searches without warrants under threats of child removal. This rare constitutional challenge aims to defend families from unwarranted intrusions, revealing how CPS tactics can traumatize innocent households. Spike in child fatalities sparks debate on removal policies. In Washington state, a surge in fatal and near-fatal incidents involving children in 2025 has reignited discussions on CPS removal practices. Critics argue that hasty removals without sufficient evidence contribute to family destabilization, while defenders point to the challenge balancing safety with family unity. This controversy reflects broader national debates on whether CPS policies exacerbate rather than prevent harm.
Human trafficking risks among child welfare-involved youth. A 2024 study reveals verified human trafficking allegations among children in the child welfare system, particularly those with repeat involvements. While not directly implicating CPS in trafficking, the research shows how system instability increases vulnerability to exploitation, including sex and labor trafficking. Federal reports from 2024 emphasize the need for better protections, with FBI operations arresting hundreds in child sex abuse crackdowns. In the complex world of child welfare, a common legal question arises. What rights do parents have when CPS initiates an investigation, and what remedies exist if a child is wrongfully removed? The core issue stems from the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. CPS workers often enter homes without warrants, citing exigent circumstances. But recent lawsuits clarify that parents can refuse entry absent a court order or immediate danger. For instance, in cases like those in New York City, families have successfully challenged coercive tactics, leading to demands for clearer protocols on parental consent. If a child is removed unjustly, solutions include filing a civil rights lawsuit under Section 1983 in federal court. Parents must prove violations like lack of due process or qualified immunity breaches. Successful cases, such as foster care abuse settlements, demonstrate potential for compensation, with payouts sometimes exceeding millions for egregious harms. Steps to pursue: document everything. Gather evidence of the investigation, including report and communications. Consult an attorney. Civil rights lawyers specialize in these cases. Initial consultations are often free. File a complaint. Sue in federal court, seeking damages for emotional distress and punitive awards if malice is shown. Appeal removals. Use state family courts to contest decisions, potentially leading to reunification. While CPS aims to protect children, overreach can devastate families. Reforms, like mandatory Miranda-like warnings for parents, are proposed to ensure transparency. For advocacy, turn to resources like cpsnews.com.
In a wave of outrage sweeping the nation, parents, advocates, and survivors gathered in cities across the U.S. from September 7th to 9th, 2025, to protest what they call systemic corruption in Child Protective Services, CPS, and family courts. Demonstrators in Orange County, CA, and beyond chanted slogans demanding accountability, third-party oversight, and an end to practices they allege facilitate child trafficking and unjust family separations. One protester in Sacramento shared a harrowing story of CPS removing children without due process, echoing broader claims that the system prioritizes financial incentives over family unity. These protests, organized by groups like Family Court Fraud Warrior, highlight ongoing allegations that CPS agencies receive federal bonuses for adoptions under the 1997 Adoption and Safe Families Act, potentially incentivizing removals.
Sorry, having some issues with the mic tonight. Um, there you have it. I mean, right there. Talking about everything being exposed. We've all come together. We're making some noise, and it's being heard. It's being exposed. It's all over the news. Lawsuits that usually would be hidden or not talked about for sexual abuse that's been going on for decades or so on and so forth. Um, all the way to what it is today for millions and billions of dollars of things where these people are now adults, and this going on. And as you guys know, there's several other people that we've had that watches our show that have been abused through either religious organizations or a foster for some kind of organization that is constantly getting you involved with kids, and it's always a substitute for the family. If you'll notice, that big change is the substitute for the family. It's either, in some organizations, it's the church that replaces the family, or in other places, what we're seeing with CPS and such like is either they're working together with churches or the government is replacing the thing of family when they have family members. This has been going on for a long time, guys, and it's finally coming to where the people have had enough. And I don't think people really get the concept, like I said, with everything that's going on, how long this has been going on. And once it's all coming out, like I said, we're seeing so many truths revealed every day of, things that we were lied to about, the JFK assassination, MK Ultra, all those things finally declassified that, it wasn't a bunch of crap. The Martin Luther King experiment, once again, of the things that go on. And now even some people from a lot of communities that knew the true history of Martin Luther King, about how it was part of a secret organization that dealt with money that Stalin gave, even from the old Iron Curtain, on how to overthrow our government, that those seeds that have been planted are still go through those things. Rochelle, I do not have TikTok because I was banned from TikTok for saying things like what we say on this show. You're more than welcome to, like I said, share some of those things if you've got a way of sharing or clipping or something like that. If you have YouTube, I don't know what they have available. But yeah, the corrupt system, and when you go after it, man, they come down hard on you and use anything they can to break you, to silence you, to manipulate you. And a lot of people will get a lawyer, in that last video and things, sue them and this and that. Well, a lot of people have learned that when it comes to suing the state or other state actors, because of the mass corruption within the bar association in every state, that all your attorneys fear the judges and magistrates and the retaliation from the bar. Because why? These judges and magistrates sit on the bar committees. You talk about a conflict of interest. Yeah, even in my case, one of the judge in the particular case on the appeal sat on the ethics committee of all things. And what a disgusting thing to realize this particular human being that would violate constitutional rights in their very oath sits on an ethics committee to judge others. Disgusting. Which is why this just needs to there's it's a gut themselves and everything else and independent. And if I need you, but once again, this has worked within a system. It's not a theory or a conspiracy theory. We now know the Department of Education has worked to dumb us down. Big pharma has used to keep us sick. Food conglomerates and everything else has been poisoning our foods to make us more obese, have more health problems, to be dependent on big pharma itself, as well as other issues, as well as other people getting rich by stealing other people's ideas. And we're all waking up to all this stuff, and some of us are over here like, I told you so. Um, and finding out half these things where we're supposed to be the richest and best thing in the nation, yet we can't even get our basic constitutional rights as we work freely throughout this world, either by law enforcement that are doing things that are unconstitutional. Yeah, even the one officer that you saw on the show before that came, that came out and actually warned other law enforcement to say, hey, listen, guys, when they wake up and realize what we're doing and how much unconstitutional stuff is happening, we're going to be in big trouble. And, if you guys can go look at that story, but it was very well known. If not, it's in some of my Facebook posts on my personal account. That's usually where we do a lot of our stuff there. Because once again, I don't have TikTok. And I know this show repeats all around the world. But you guys see this pattern where even in England, to where they gave up their guns so many years ago, even basic stuff. And now they're being arrested for social media posts. What kind of freedom is that? And they're supposed to have, freedom to talk or freedom, that same thing. And this whole thing with the CPS, this is not a new system that CPS is implementing. It's called a social credit system. If your neighbors don't like what you're doing, I'll call CPS on you and have your children removed until you comply. And then you're going to go through a reprogramming camp. Sound familiar? This is China. This is a socialist communist system that CPS is running here in America to brainwash our country. And every bit of it is so unconstitutional, but they've put people in certain positions within government, state, federal, so on and so forth. And there's been a lot of purging in the federal, but you're not finding a whole lot in the state. Everybody's kind of quiet about the state. And that's where a lot of it needs to happen, is the purging of the states. With these people that are doing shit that's unconstitutional. And yeah, I'm going to say it that way. And at the same time, they were allowing stuff in classrooms that should have never went. Propaganda doesn't belong anywhere near education. That is for things for adults to sort through. But you start attacking children, to me, that's an act of war itself, because you're brainwashing them. But and like I said, when I think Darren's wrapping up a few things, Now, y'all remember the thing. Now, I'm going to play this other video, and this is going to blow your mind. Remember the connection where we had the egg shortage, the big, huge egg shortage, like even the fast food places, listen, we can't do this and that because we're only allowed so many eggs across the country and this and that. Why? Because they had burnt down chicken farms and the price of chicken went through the roof and you couldn't find eggs and it was like selling crack on the back nine, especially with some of the farmers. What do you got? Yeah, I got a dozen, I got half dozen for the price of what? A dozen. Yeah, good money. And most people are like, well, what's it got to do with anything? Man, this just blew my mind. Watch this video and connect the dots with the time period.
Against COVID, and they bind to and neutralize the spike protein. Why did we never hear about that? That would seem like pretty newsworthy information, but they never told us about that. What did they do instead? Just a short while after,
massacred chickens.
We had an avian flu outbreak. Killed 170 million egg-laying birds, turkeys, chickens, etc. They burned down chicken farms.
If you just get to the conclusion that they do this kind of stuff because they literally don't care if you live or die, the better off you'll be. Because then you'll start focusing on things you need to focus on. Get healthy, make sure your family's protected, make sure you make as much money as you possibly can, understand that nobody cares about you.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, you'll have to, like I said, we've had some technical difficulties. Just bear with us. What that was talking about is the yolk inside of an egg, not just chicken eggs, but duck eggs and everything else, breaks down the S protein to where you would have never caught COVID or what they were calling COVID. It was really odd that those happen there. So in other words, to increase this pandemic of more people getting sick and this and that, we're going to take away your eggs to where you can get healthy with your diet. Whoa. Everything happens for a reason. Darren, I don't know if you're back there, but you're more than welcome to pop in here on your 2 cents on that. And okay, I think there he is. What do you think about that, man? Your mic's off.
Well, man, there's a lot to be said about all of that stuff. First of all, I hate to say this, but we told you so. I mean, that's the problem first and foremost, is that nobody's been listening. When those trains were crashing out there in the Midwest and they were polluting all the foods, people just thought they were train crashes. They weren't train crashes. They were train crashes. But what was inside of those trains were all kinds of chemicals that they were spreading onto the crops. The crops were then being killed. We don't have a food shortage in this United States. What we have is too much food, and they are mimicking this stuff so that way we think that we're under this. And the people that are suffering from this is the farmers. It's these farmers that are working hard, that are trying to produce us good quality food so that we don't end up obese and broken and all of these things. And the powers that be are fighting against them. And it's just tough stuff, man. It's really tough stuff, but you need.
I think it's funny too. The thing that blew my mind was when what they called ugly food.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody called it ugly food. And I go, what are you talking about? Because, I've been around farms and, about out on farms, so on and so forth. And I'm talking homegrown stuff, this and that. And there's always a little short discoloration, but it doesn't change the taste of the food. And then I began to research into that of how they've almost polished all the foods in the grocery store to have a certain color to catch your eye for advertising. And but it's not natural.
Mhm.
So that's why, not everything's there. Like an apple's not perfect.
Mhm.
A tomato can be, all sorts of different colors that, this could be purple, it could be red, it could be this. I mean, it depends on the stuff that's in the ground and how they taste. But they all don't come out all the same. And sometimes there's ugly food or ugly, what they call ugly fruits and vegetables that they don't look like, oh, that looks kind of nasty or not good because our brain's programmed by the grocery store. It's supposed to look this way, but in all actuality, that's not the way it's found in nature.
No. Have you seen those videos where they show them with the bananas? And they're bending the bananas.
Yeah,
Bananas aren't even breaking; they're just bending.
yeah,
They bend right down to that you can bend them in half. They're not breaking. I think it's the same thing on the
yeah.
watermelons too. And the only question that you can ask is, who has all the money to do this stuff?
Hmm.
I'm not going to come out here and say it, but
Monsanto.
right, Monsanto for sure. And then the next question is why? You know,
Black Rock, all find them, and Nabisco,
mhm,
all of them. A lot of people don't realize a lot of our major food empires. You know who they were bought up by? Big Tobacco.
mm. Well, they had to do.
Big Tobacco bought up the food places. Kraft. Go look at it. It's very well documented on it happened. The same people that were adding stuff to tobacco that is known to be good for you, parts of tobacco, this and that. It was the chemicals that was called the tar
Now,
and some of the other. That's not
do
even
you
found.
look at the outrage?
You
Look
know.
at the outrage about the tobacco thing. When the tobacco thing went down, man, these people just stopped at nothing to
Oh
get the
yeah.
Marlboro Man taken off the sign, to get all of those images because they're like, we
Oh
can't
yeah.
have this, we can't have this. Where is it talking about our food, and where is it that they're talking about our kids being stolen? Those
Mhm.
two things you don't see billboards for. You see a bunch of advocate groups out
Nope.
there doing what they were doing, not to the magnitude. I mean, we've been trying for years now, even here in the station. God, how many people have we tried to bring in here that just can't commit or whatever? This is a big freaking deal, people, but nobody is wanting to put the commitment in. But I'll tell you what, they came right after those freaking people for the tobacco, right after it, right after them. And you know what? They got to fight up against the pharmaceutical companies, because we know that the pharmaceutical companies did
Yep.
not want tobacco to be taken off the market, because who do you think put the chemicals into the tobacco? You know,
Yep. Big Pharma.
so
I mean, they've been doing. I mean, you go back into the sanitariums where they were doing experiments in the sanitariums.
mhm.
I mean, and these are children,
and,
adults, all different age groups. Why? Because they were getting what?
mhm.
Kids that had autism,
And what are
kids
they
that
doing
had
now?
Down
What
syndrome.
is the
You,
first thing CPS does when
yep,
they get a
same
hold of your
thing.
kids? What's the first thing they do to them?
Go get a
Go
shot.
get a shot, go put them on some pills. They got ADHD, they got whatever they got. Let's get them medicated. They have the biggest playground and the biggest test field that you could possibly have when they take our kids, and there's nobody there to stand up and say no to
Yep.
these people. Once they terminate your parental rights,
And Big
nothing they
Pharma,
can do.
yeah, and they're hurting right now with everything being exposed, with everything that's going on and the poisons, and we don't need this, and it's part of our food and this and that. And then you're finding out that they have a shoe in. There's like an airtight contract with CPS and these state agencies with these hospitals.
Mhm,
Big Pharma, where do you think they get it? Hey, give us everything you've got.
mhm,
Catch this kid up on everything. Make it compliant. How do you do that when you have no medical records, though?
mhm.
Oh,
Give them all we got. Give them the government. Give them the government cocktail.
yep.
And this is
The government
that's
cocktail.
right. This is what they're doing, people. This is what they do. Make no
Yeah.
mistake. They take our kids. Guarantee you, if you could find out, I guarantee you, because look, we know, right, that when they withdraw the children from their families, there's trauma. That's huge trauma, right? We know this. So
Yeah.
what is their counselors going to say? Oh, well, they're depressed. We got to put them on
Put
this.
them on
They got
pills. Yep.
anxiety. We got to put them on a pill. We got to put them on all this, and all that is a test field for all of these people to get what they need to get so that they can medicate and control what we have. And we're the only country in this world, people, that have all these cancers and obesity and all of this stuff. Look at people in third world countries that have never left a tribe are living to be 125 years old, and they're eating dirt and grass, for God's sakes, and they are fine. Just think about this.
Speaking of that, dirt and grass and waking up, national news has really kicked off with Africa. Their general popping up in one of those countries over there. I can't remember which one, Uruguay or something like that. Anyway, it had a king or a president, and there was a recent finding that they actually intercepted, and this guy that runs it, you've seen on that's from Africa, that spoke at the UN. He's spoken in several other places. They're not going to be quiet because their two richest things they have in Africa are lithium mines and gold. Two major things, but yet these people we see every time. You got that song "In the Arms of an Angel" type shit, and the kids fucking starving. Won't you please help? Give some money and spare change to feed this African child that in that. Why, when you're mining fucking lithium and fucking gold, you should be richer than fuck? Who made that fucking deal? I mean, seriously, you talk about bad contracts, and they're finally waking up of like, wait a minute. And that's what this guy is standing up. He goes, yes, we've done this and we've worked off infrastructure and all these things, but who's made these deals for places? That's why France is falling apart, because they've been living off of this country for mining stuff, these mining companies, and they finally said, nope, we're just going to seize it all. You can kiss our butt. We're going to do it for ourselves. We don't need another country to run a business that's in our own country to dig up our own land, and we don't profit from it. I mean, wow. Waking up across across everything, that now Africa's like, hey, we ain't going to take it no more. And we're over here like, what the hell's going on? And then France just collapsed. I mean, it was just amazing. But let's get into, like I said, let's pick up where we left off on the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, sir.
And let's because we love to get into this, and you guys, we're going to do our best here. Let's see if we can.
And listen, there's a reason for all of this.
Okay.
This isn't just a lame history lesson. This isn't just let's fill some time and do this. There's a reason that we're going over these things, guys. And the fact is that your rights, everything that you do in this country, begins here. Everything.
Yes. With these foundational documents, these are the founding documents that says, as a people, where we reside together, this is what we so choose, is to shake this off. I wanted to check something out or go back to this one sections in here that proves something of how brilliant our founding fathers were. And it's right here. We're going to start where this little highlight is. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be charged for light and transient causes. In other words, they're enlightened. Where these particular causes. In other words, these are foundational principles for what we're doing, not to be pushed back and forth by the blow of the wind, if you will. Or look, here's something new, bright and shiny, and everybody runs to it. We need to be hesitant, is what it's saying. But it also acknowledges this. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind, in other words, throughout history, people are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable. In other words, we tolerate a lot of crap. And we get used to it. Then to right themselves by abolishing the forms which they are accustomed to. In other words, it's hard to come out of, and they're acknowledging that, of slavery or dictatorship and change that frame of mind, because they've been comfortable. Instead of having true freedom, you've gotten comfortable, or you've swapped it with something. And I've said that over and over again with posts where you see people doing like, hey, we're doing a DUI checkpoint over here at this particular thing, and this is to cut down, this is for the good of the people in this sense. That is a constitutional rights violation, that you got to have probable cause to stop somebody without being interfered with. Now, whether we like it or not, that's the Constitution. The drug, the drinking and driving, or driving under the influence, or that, One, you're questioning people in their Fourth Amendment in their car to try and gain entry. Do you have drugs or alcohol? Have you done this? You have that. I have a right to shut the fuck up. And unless you've got a reason to pull me over, a justifiable reason, or a single, articulated suspicion, or a single articulated fact is where you're supposed to be able to continue. You can have a suspicion, but then you must get to the point you got to have a fact. If not, you need to terminate. That's what the rules say. I didn't write them, but those are the rules. Now we have to respect constitutional rights, or I can continue my investigation, but they don't have to do it. And how many people? Well, just participate with CPS, and you'll get your kids back. And this suffer. You hear this? You're going to suffer those evils of just being punished by the CPS socialist communist system that's unconstitutional, 100%, yes, but you're comfortable with it. We'll just go through the programs, or then we'll give a misnomer that only people that are bad people get CPS involved. That is not true. There are so many lawsuits across this country right now where no, cash for kids. You're looking at trafficking. You're looking at this, everything with the Diddy thing. Who provided the kids? CPS. That was brought out. Epstein, who dealt with the kids? CPS. CPS is constantly in those conversations. And we do nothing. We suffer with it. Everybody, well, we want the Epstein list. We want this. We want that. Do you really? Because think about what that would do. If people are just comfortable, I'd just rather go along with my life and give me my iPhone, my next iPhone that's coming out with whatever new drink or eat or anything else that's going out there. And I'll just chase after that dollar and everything else. And that has nothing to do with your family. And that's what it's looking to destroy. But it's telling us they're aware of this. Okay. But it says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariable the same object evidences a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right. Wait, not and, comma, further defined even deeper than just their right. It's their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards. In other words, people that'll make sure what put them in that position in the first place never happens again. That's what the American Revolution was about, is spilling off this. Let's make sure this never happens again, as what has happened to us that was happening over in England, into Ireland, into Scotland, into all these different places. That's what they didn't want anymore. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. And it goes on to go through this thing. So let's go down here. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Now, remember, before we went up here, you can read up here, it has to do with our happiness. We're supposed to be happy as a people, not, content. We're talking internal happiness. We're accomplishing something. The American dream is what they called that and labeled that. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operations till his assent should be obtained. In other words, we can't think independently for ourselves. We got to have somebody that's over somewhere else to give us the pat on the back and say that's okay, make those laws. And when so, then they suspend them or utterly neglect to attend to them. In other words, sure, we'll pass them. Ain't that what's happening in our country today? Didn't we have this discussion, Darren, on another show? I mean, about we have laws on the books, we just need to follow them. I mean, think about it, people. That's what they're talking about. This is what was going on. I mean, wasn't it, Darren? I mean, we had that in-depth conversation.
We've had it many times, man. And this is why it's so important to outline in these documents such parts like you've just said, man. Again, right here, institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. This isn't a light and transient cause, man.
Yeah. No, it's our children. It's our family.
Right.
It's a foundational First Amendment, the first attack. And it's not just press or speech or this, it's family.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot within these things that you read in depth that the amendments cover under the Civil Rights
Mm-hmm.
Act. But we got to go back to figure out our frame of mind of where we came from and what it's accusing the other government. And listen to, and it mimics what we have even going on today. Forget, without the approval. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodations of large districts of people. Who's running the show? The whole state? Give you Illinois, for example. Who runs Illinois? Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
The big city. Not for the whole state.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's such a damn mess. So what about the farmers? What about this? What about these other places? Oh, it doesn't matter. It's all about this one conglomerate area, the big city. Unless those people would relinquish the right of the representatives in the legislature,
Mm-hmm.
a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. In other words, they've got control of it. They're not doing anything for this and only for the good of the big people that are in downtown, not for the farmer. It's not equal. It's not being equal under the law. We're favoring people. In other words, that big misnomer that we have in this nation, that people that live in farming communities and this and that are dumb as a box of rocks. They're uneducated. They're uncouth. They're on this or on that and all those other things. Do you ever heard those things? Those are dividing lines between us that are not supposed to be. That's one of the things we threw off from Great Britain. They came over all, nose up in the air and expected to serve me. I'm from England. I represent the Queen. That was not going over well in this country. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and how many times are you hearing about them passing shit in the middle of the night that's 5,000 pages and never been read?
Right.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
We just did that not too long ago, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah. And from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into, compliance with his measures. In other words, paperwork. I'm going to wear you out with all the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is done. This is done. And it's all that. This should be clear in this. Why are we going through all this bullshit paperwork? This should be simple, common sense conversation between normal fucking people and sort this shit out. Nope, you got to file this form with this form and this form with this form. It's the same shit that fucking Britain was doing to us as a country. That now our country is doing to us as the people. Burying paperwork.
That's right.
90% of the stuff we deal with court has nothing to do with what you figure would be oral arguments or anything in the
Mm-hmm.
courtroom. It's have you filed it and have you filed it properly?
Mm-hmm.
What's that got to do with anything? Well, if you've got to do it, you've got to call exhibits in for so long. You've got to do this instead of just bring what you got, bring what I got. Let's have a discussion. No, I'm going to bury you in proper forms. That's not allowed. This is allowed. This is not allowed. This is not. But at least with our Constitution, it says these rights are done. If these are not here, they're not even admissible as evidence. That's called fruit from a poisonous tree doctrine,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the things that does that loophole of saying, listen, if you broke the law once, I'm not going to let you keep coming after me. That's an abuse of power. But CPS is still doing, even across state lines, acting like a federal program. You're not. You're violating another state's sovereignty. When you go across the line, and unless it's a criminal act which requires law enforcement, CPS is working as though they are sheriffs or something that's sworn in. And the state cannot, by law, replace a duty or an obligation that the people have an elected position, such as the sheriff. The state cannot create an agency to relinquish the power that was given to by the people to their local sheriff. It's interfering with law enforcement. And a lot of people go, well, that's not true. The state can this, they can. Once it's in the court, that's different. But these are their foot soldiers now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no crime, but we're going to put you in a
Mm-hmm.
civil court do all this stuff and steal your kids with no warrant or court order with anything else. And if under the Constitution, if you really knew your rights, a lot of you would make a decision if you knew about it to put a hole in them when they cross the threshold of the door. I'm here for your children. Blam! You're scattered all over the front yard. Now who's in trouble? Who's in trouble? Did you have a warrant or court order to enter my home? You are a government representative. Doesn't matter. Now you're no common than a common criminal and you're here to steal my children. Now the perspective's changed where you work for, it doesn't matter. Even as law enforcement, if you don't have the right way to go in, there's even laws on the federal docket that says if you have an officer not acting within his duties and in his own power, you have a right to resist, even to take his life. It's on the books, folks. But you got to get rid of the bullshit in the buddy system and go by the law. But when you have attorneys that are scared of judges and it's this own system that they work in of retaliation, not to do the right thing according to their oath and report judges and magistrates for doing shit on the bench that is unconstitutional, what the hell? And these are the people that want big money to do what? To hose you or to act like this and that. You're not going to, and there are a few out there. But what did CPS do when they came against that one? They went and took his.
That's right. What's CPS do when they think that you're winning? They come and take your kids. What's the number one way you can get to any person's heart? Take their children and you will break that machine in a moment. There's the only one thing that you can do to someone to stop that machine from moving, and that's take their kids, man. People stop in their tracks.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
stop
there's
your
that
tracks.
will break. Listen, if it's your first time going through that stuff, it will change your life. It will change everything about you. You will have a pain like you'll never had. And then there's those that they mess with that they don't want to encounter. The ones that are already so damn broken and in pieces, there's nothing left to break. What else are you going to take from me? Those are the people you don't know what to do with, because those are the ones that keep coming after you and won't stop and have a resolve and a code and actual honor to actually chase you down and say, I will make you pay. And this is not right and will stand. And we're seeing more of those over and over again. Darren, I think, in my opinion, today, standing up, and that's you people out there in the audience. That's you guys on Facebook. That's you guys on our shows. That's you guys interacting with stuff on other platforms and this and that, getting this word out of. I will not be silent anymore. What you did to me was wrong. And then knowing how to, that was so hidden before that now we're pushing a little bit further in, looking for great success to use their own court systems against them to hold them accountable. Because, even with states that come in and say, listen, you violated your own code to where this should have never happened. And your judge and your magistrates and all these people knew this was supposed to happen as being mandatory, but you didn't, thought you were playing with somebody that wouldn't eventually find it. And it turns around and finds you totally screwed up and your whole case ends up going away and you stand back and you go, with all those damn lawyers in that courtroom and a judge and a magistrate, how did nobody do the right fucking thing that this has come to what it is? And it's not right. Or even have a magistrate say on the record, we don't deal with constitutional issues in this courtroom on the record. What do you do? Why are you adjudicating that? Because if constitutional issues doesn't dictate everything within every court system, family court, civil court and family court are in the same courtroom, criminal court and everything. If the Constitution does not lead our way in our courtrooms, then they're not a real courtroom. And that's what it says. And it's even against their own state's constitution. So that's why that we say if you're going to fight in state court, you know, if you're going to do that, you got to use their own codes and statutes and even their own state's constitution against them. And usually, a majority of the time, you will find something in federal law, but it's also mimicked in state law. You know, when you take and you go into going down these rabbit holes, and I know a lot of you guys do a lot of research, and you'll find those things that are very similar, and or you can find out and say, well, this doesn't apply to here, especially in federal. Just because it's federal doesn't mean there. It has to make sure it's gone through a certain process, such as Court of Appeals, which makes it national, or SCOTUS has heard the case, or they've gone to an appeal, lost an appeal, so on and so forth. Then it becomes something different because it escalated. But the initial winning of your case stays in a district, which a lot of times they don't want to appeal it, as they did in the Ninth Circuit Court in California, which you guys see all that, to where they did an appeal on it, went before the Supreme Court justices of federal that were in that district, and they had their own little soiree there that says, how do you think it's possible that somebody can get on the stand and lie on the stand? I mean, how is that acceptable?
And it's happening.
How is this even a question? I mean, and then people just turn around and go, well, how did they not know? How do we go into a courtroom and not know those same rules apply in a criminal courtroom and a civil courtroom and in family court too, including all those constitutional rights? They're supposed to exist. But
as long as you don't stand up for those rights, man, as long as you don't enact them, invoke them, make them appear to be, they're not going to let you have them.
But the biggest thing is not only just fixing that system, but like, you know, we talked about at the beginning, so fixing even the federal system of making it easier for individuals to file pro se and not jumping through some stupid hoops like that. That, I'm sorry, nowadays in this day and age, I click on something and I hit join. I usually get connected to your phone or a confirmation email to confirm it's you. And then you're in, and then you just type in whatever you need to. And even this, but there's not even education on this stuff. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm getting kicked back, or I got kicked out, or oh my gosh, I don't have time. File a Rule 60B on it. It wasn't my clerk's side. Not, and it has to do with, once again, inexperience. They don't get a lot of it. Why? Because usually a federal attorney will ask another, hey, how do I go through this system? And they've got somebody kind of mentoring them. But you and I, it's a pain in the butt. But they do the same thing with these other systems that I'm not even supposed to deal with CPS unless I choose to. And it's being forced down our throats. It's not a choice. And let alone the power they have to do anything before a judge, that their word is over a family. Bring evidence. Matter of fact, I don't understand the other thing too that I think ought to change too, is that threshold they talk about that they have to meet in civil court versus criminal court, how criminal is much higher. I think family court should be equal to fucking criminal court.
Of course. You're talking about the death penalty. You're talking about the death penalty, dude. The death penalty, because if you're not going to tell me that taking your child away from you is not the civil death penalty, then you're out of your mind. I don't even want to bother talking to you. Yeah, that is the worst thing that you can possibly do to someone, and it gets the least amount of scrutiny in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Preponderance amount of evidence.
You know, we've talked with our buddy too, Henry, with the ADA, of how many courtrooms start up, or even somebody from the court clerk's office before you go in and ask you, is there anything under the ADA that we need to give you before we get started? And that's a violation of your ADA rights. It's on the court to look into those things and provide those and to request those things. And that's where a lot of your clerk's office, you'll see a lot of them. And I'm going to be dead honest with you. Not every court clerk's the same, but a large majority of the ones that I've been in is a bunch of people, a bunch of chatter, everything else, and gossip like a damn motherfucker, but not doing their damn job. And half of them don't know what they're doing. And they got to call over 5 different people when you ask them something not even complicated. Or they try to, act like they're the boss. Well, our rule says this and this and this and that. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I've had people deal with that several times to where they've retired over a certain amount of time. And, I've seen that with other people in closed businesses, and some of the business assets they'll liquidate a lot of the stuff, and then some of the stuff they'll roll back over into their personal as part of, that's just part of the deal or whatever. If they sell or liquidate the business or close it, it depends. Hey, I want to keep this vehicle, and you do it over, and like, wait a minute. Well, I've had this vehicle. If you say with some of them, I've had this vehicle for so long, or piece of equipment since before I became this entity, and now I want to do it, and they tax you at the BMB to go from this classification to this classification because you're selling it technically to your business is the way they look at it. And then you try to pull it out, they want to tax you again. It's like, the fuck you talking about? I already paid taxes on this motherfucker once. You're going to tax me again like I'm buying it off myself? And they just go through, and it's like, no, this is just part of the, well, you have to have it appraised. And then I thought this was funny when somebody told me this. They said, listen, they wanted me to go to a local car dealership to what? And get my vehicle or my equipment appraised. And then they have to write it up as an appraisal, and you have to pay for this. And then I'm like, since when? You talk about a hose job, one right after another. I mean, taxes. So wait a minute, I got a tax it to go from personal to here, and then I sold my business off or closed my business, and part of closing that out is I'm keeping this particular equipment or vehicle, and you want to tax me again for rolling it back into my name where it was originally in my name? It's like, that doesn't make sense. I should have just leased it to my own company and done it that way. And of course, they don't tell you that. That way you hold on to it, and then you pay it off, and then you keep it on your personal asset. And going those back and forth, but I was like, damn, you get taxed that many times for the same shit? He goes, yep, they want their damn money. I'm like, oh, hell no. So, crooked shit, man. Crooked. It just blows my mind. But Darren, on a few things. We got some paperwork and stuff we got to get back onto here real quick that we have pending. And we're ready to kick some ass this week. Like I said, blow the top off a few things, but it's it's time. It's people are getting ready to go down. It's time to start getting some stuff filed for criminal cases and everything else. So it evolves, it goes on, but it never dies. But guys, thanks for joining us. Join us again next week. We'll spend some more time on the Declaration of Independence. But man, what powerful words our founding fathers had to realize so much about humanity and time, and to study history enough to put it in there to say, we've had enough. You're tyrannical. I'm going to shake you off. I want my freedom. I want this. And then go on to write the Constitution of the United States that makes it completely different. And like I said, the people that are against that and other people that want other things like Sharia law or this, that, I'm sorry, our Constitution does not allow another one above the Constitution other than God's law itself, which is found in nature, which obviously you can't, hey, I'm going to charge God so much in this because you didn't make it rain enough, or he has to do this and that. Obviously, you can't control those. That's what that was talking about. But guys, stay strong, stay educated, educate one another, lift each other up, keep your head high. There's more than one way to do things. Like I said, there's also, if you guys don't have the 1983, you guys can look into the Court of Claims also for those things too. There's multiple different courts, but you got to fight in the right court. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Shattered tears on the ground, echoes of voices inside.